All right, so now that we know how to find x and y intercepts on a graph, we have to talk about what they mean. So sometimes our graphs are going to be in real world type situations, and they're going to ask like, well, what does the x-intercept actually mean? Or what does the y-intercept actually mean? So we know the x-intercept, or a 0, we know that is when y is 0, when the line crosses the x-axis, and we know we write it as number comma 0. But how do I know what it actually means? There's a couple of key words. So the x-intercept, it could mean when something is finishes, ends, or runs out. Okay. Now what exactly is running out? Well, it's when the y runs out. So maybe we should type that off to the side. When y runs out, or finishes, or ends, or whatever, okay? So whatever they have told you that y represents, it's when that is running out, okay? I know it's the x-intercept, so it's kind of weird, like, oh, why are we talking about y? But that's when the y is 0. 0 is when something is over. So that's x-intercept, or 0 the place. The y-intercept, we know, well, that's when x is 0, and that's when the line crosses the y-axis, and when you would write it as 0 comma number. Okay, so what are our key words for the y-intercept? What does the y-intercept mean? So we know that's the beginning of something. So we're going to put begins, or starts. Or the fancy word that they're going to like to throw at you is the initial number. Okay? So it could be when the x starts. Usually x is like time, or like a distance, but usually it's the beginning of x, or it's like the beginning at y. Okay? So let's look at some examples. So this says, this graph shows the length of a candle after being lit for X minutes. And number 1 says, what is the meaning of the x-intercept? So what are they asking for? The x-intercept. So I'm going to look back at my notes. X-intercept means finish, ends, or runs out. So I'm going to type that just so I don't forget. Finishes. Okay. So, first of all, on my graph, the x-intercept is down here where it crosses the x-axis at 100 minutes. Well, what's happening at 100 minutes? Well, it's the finishing, the end of the candle, because we know it's the end of the y. The y was labeled candle length. So, letter A says starting. That is not another word for finish, so it's definitely not A. B is also talking about starting, so we know automatically that's not right. Letter C is talking about ending, so it could be this one. But this said the ending length of the candle. Well, we know the end length of the candle is going to be 0. So we don't really particularly like that one. It does say ending, but I don't like the description. Letter D says the time it took for the candle to run out. That is what we're talking about. Okay? So the answer was D, the end of the candle. That's the end of the amount of time, 100 minutes it took for the candle to run out. That is correct. Okay? Number 2, same picture. What is the meaning of the y-intercept this time? So if I look back at my keywords for y-intercept, y-intercept was the beginning, the starting, the initial. So over on my question, I'm going to put the start. Okay. So, well, starting of what? The start of the candle length. Okay. So obviously it's not C and it's not D, because C is talking about the end. That's not the start. And D is talking about runs out. So that is also not the start. B said the starting time in minutes. Now we know the y-intercept is actually up there at 10. And we're talking about 10 inches. Okay, so that is the starting length. The start of the y is up there. So the correct answer was A, the starting length of the candle. So you're going to keep the keywords in front of you, answer some of the questions, try them. If you find that you're having problems, make sure you ask your teacher for help if you're getting them all wrong. So you can go ahead and start the practice.